In Washington County hurt 6 workers earlier this week. Our Chase Campbell talked with an expert to learn more about what these wells are, the dangers they can pose, and why plugging them is important, especially in our region.
Orphan wells are oil and gas wells with no clear ownership. Marietta College Professor Emeritus of Petroleum Engineering Ben Ebenhack says they're often left behind when small drilling companies go out of business without properly transferring their assets.
I think most people don't realize how many small independent oil and gas companies there are. It's thousands, and some of them go out of business just like any small business owners.
Ebenhack says these problematic wells can date back a century or more, a time when there were far fewer regulations around drilling for oil and gas. These abandoned wells present multiple hazards to community and the environment. In the early 20th century, Ebenhack says companies often plugged wells by simply jamming a wooden log into the hole, a practice that isn't much of a long-term solution.
Over 100 years, a wood log rots and decays and disappears. So at that point, the well is open to the atmosphere.
Ebenhack says methane emissions from these unplugged wells have environmental consequences.
Primarily, if there's some natural gas, you've got the issue of that gas escaping to the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. It is my personal opinion that climate change studies underestimate how much of the methane in the atmosphere is coming from old orphan wells. Because, of course, it's almost impossible to monitor when you don't even know where all those wells are.
Ebenhack says other hazards include gas accumulating to explosive levels under tree cover, groundwater contamination when fluids migrate up the wellbore into drinking water aquifers, and safety hazards for new drilling operations. This region faces special challenges because it was a cradle of the oil and gas industries.
A lot of the wells that were drilled by the seat of the pants without good geologic or engineering understanding by just people who would build a rig and start drilling were in this area.
The problem is compounded by poor record keeping from that era. Ebenhack described working with the Seneca Nation to locate orphan wells on their land.
They had 3 sets of maps, each of which had different locations for the wells. And trying to find a 12-inch hole in the ground in the forest when you have a 400-meter search radius is a challenge. We found that about a third of the mapped wells had never actually been drilled. So that was actually our big victory with them. A third of them are taken care of without doing anything else.
Ebenhack says proper well plugging involves setting bridge plugs, rubber-lined devices that seal against the wellbore, and pouring hundreds of feet of cement on top. The Ohio Division of Natural Resources estimates there are tens of thousands of orphan wells in the state. With few records existing for many of those wells, the job of identifying and plugging them is both difficult and essential. In Marietta, Chase Campbell, WTAP News.